What's going on, guys? It's Unknown Player here, and today I'm bringing you guys something really special, and this is going to be a description, analysis and discussion about a mission that has never been before seen, a mission that I was shown a few days ago on Sunday night while I'm out here at E3. So essentially I was invited over to the Ritz-Carlton, one of the tallest buildings in LA, and we drove over, and we didn't know exactly what was going on. All I knew that was happening was something related to Advanced Warfare and a Call of Duty event, and we went over, and then I went inside to a building, one of the apartments, and then I met with Glenn Schofield and Michael Condria, which is really cool to meet those guys. They're obviously the two lead developers of Sledgehammer, so I got to ask them a lot of questions and find out some interesting details I might share with you guys very soon. But I get to talk with those guys, meet some other community members. Then essentially we went into a room, and there was a huge TV screen, massive 7.1 surround sound setup, and they showed us essentially a mission and also a pre-trailer with lots of interesting stuff. But the mission is called Biolab, and this is a never before seen one. I believe they're also showing it at the E3 floor to certain media people, and essentially I'm going to describe this to you. I'm allowed to talk about it to you guys. Obviously I don't have gameplay, so I'm going to be talking over some COD Ghost gameplay of me just running around this L115 sniper on Favela map. I had a lot of fun doing that, but essentially enjoy the gameplay while I discuss a little bit about this mission and everything that goes on. So first off, you start off in this kind of jungle, kind of forest area, and there is a helicopter shooting at you with a sniper rifle. It's a very high caliber sniper because you hide behind a kind of a shed, and the sniper rifle bullet completely obliterates the shed. So it's a massive sniper rifle being shot at you from a helicopter, and you're basically trying to evade this. You run through a kind of chase through. It's very dark, so you can see the lighting and all the shadows. The graphics look immense, so good, and also the sound of the 7.1 was unreal. It was so amazing. The ground was shaking, and you have to experience Advanced Warfare with some sort of really good headset or be able to go and play it yourself, because watching a YouTube 720p trailer or even one of my videos, as good as I can make it, I can't recreate the actual sound that you will feel when you play the single player yourself. So I definitely recommend, if you can get out to any event, try it and experience it, because it is really cool. But essentially they were going through this kind of forest, trying to hide from the sniper. They reach one point, and then they say, one of the characters you're following mentions that your exosuit is ready, and he talks about the energy levels, and he says that it's ready and good to go. And then you turn on your actual invisibility cloak, and so this kind of signifies you do have to wait for your battery to recharge to be able to use these abilities. They turn on the invisible cloak, the helicopter goes away, they can't see you anymore. Then you're sneaking through enemy lines, and there is a lot of enemies, and the footsteps are very loud. That's one thing I noticed. The footsteps in this game were really loud. It may just be because I had huge 7.1 surround sound speakers. It may be that it's just single player, but who knows? Perhaps multiplayer will have very loud footsteps. Obviously the exosuit is very heavy, so I can imagine that's definitely possible. That's just something I picked up on. But essentially you were going through, and then you picked off two guys. You walked up with your invisible shields, they couldn't see you, you knifed them in the throat, and then picked up their weapon, and it's got the classic kind of line. He said these weapons are unsuppressed, so be careful with your fire. That's kind of like a classic Call of Duty line that Captain Price always said to you and stuff like that, and it's really interesting that they said it again. And essentially you're moving through the enemy lines. It's very reminiscent of the mission in COD 4, you might remember, where you're sneaking into Chernobyl to try and get the line of sight to snipe Zakhaev when the tanks are going through you and all the patrols. It's exactly like that, but this time you have invisibility cloaks. They can't see you, so you sit in the bushes as these guys walk past you, and a huge amount of foot soldiers walk past you. Then a huge amount of these huge armored mech soldiers walk past you. The ones you might have seen in the trailer, I'll put up a picture of what they look like right here. But these huge guys walk past you. They were so loud. Their footsteps, you could hear the thumping of how they're walking by, and they were very menacing. Enormous, kind of pretty much like men wearing tank uniforms, and they huge armor, huge miniguns, and it was pretty crazy, very intimidating to have a huge amount of those guys walking right past you, but obviously they do. And then there's also a kind of a scanner vehicle which had a huge scanner which was able to see through the invisibility cloak, so you did have to hide from those guys. And the huge vehicle with the scanner, it was going back and forward down this long path, and you had to walk through it, and you had to go from cover to cover. You had to wait from the scanner to go to one side, and then you dart across the other side of the road behind a bit of cover. And essentially, because that thing could see through you, kind of indicates to me there might be some kind of attachment on the end of the gun with that scanner. I could see that as an attachment if you had that scanner on the end of the gun, that you could see people with invisible cloaks on. I can imagine that as a way to counterbalance the invisibility cloaks. But that's something interesting that I got pointed out too. And then you move on up and you meet up with some other guys. Also, another thing about the invisibility cloak, you were able to synchronize it with the other guy you were with, so you could see a blue outline around your friend and so you know he was actually friendly, even though he was invisible. So I can imagine multiplayer, when you go invisible, if invisibility is in multiplayer, your teammates will have blue outlines around them because you're synchronized with them, so you can see teammates. Obviously the enemy can't because they don't have exosuits and stuff like that, but you meet up with the other guys, and they show you some details about a chemical lab that is nearby that needs to be raided, and they bring up some huge like holographic display, and they show you the detailed map and interactive map, kind of 3D as well, of what's going on, what needs to be raided. Very reminiscent of Dead Space 3. Obviously the guys at Sledgehammer did make Dead Space 1 to 3, if you didn't know, so they've brought in some really cool aspects of the Dead Space series, of course. And then they rappel down this cliff to the biolab, and essentially once you look down the cliff you could actually see a bunch of trees. That was actually a hologram, and as you go down further, you go below the hologram, you find out there's actually a factory. And that's an interesting piece of technology that we were told about, is that they can actually hide an entire chemical lab under this kind of hologram, which showed to be just a forest, but underneath it, it was actually a chemical lab, which is pretty interesting. So that's an indication of kind of technology. It was a fake kind of panoramic view of the forest. Underneath was this illegal chemical factory, which was obviously trying to be hidden. Once you breach into it, probably one of the coolest thing about this whole mission happened. There were these two guards which were sitting outside, and this happened also earlier on, but this is kind of like a better example of it. There were these two guards outside the building, and essentially you need to breach into it. What you did is that you put down, I've forgotten the name of it, it was something, might have been like involved the word nuking or sound nuke, something like that. You put down this giant mine on the ground, and it creates an enormous bubble, which is essentially a vacuum. It sucks out all the sound in that bubble, and then you're able to shoot the two guards, you're able to strangle them, do whatever, and blow through the door. And because obviously it's a vacuum in there, zero sound gets out, so the rest of the factory is not alerted. You're inside the sound bubble, and it's a really cool way. And once you're inside, the sound gets all distorted, you can see the vision gets all weird, and it's a really cool concept of creating this vacuum to be able to breach into the chemical lab. And obviously once you breach into it, you get a little bit more combat, there's more shooting, you get to see how the guns shoot and how it reloads. It looks very cool. Also the variable grenades that you might have seen it in the induction mission, and how you can pull out, you can switch between EMP grenades, flash, the sensor grenades, seeker grenades, all these different types, and you can throw them out and seek people. And there's also their laser gun, which you saw in the induction gameplay. He pulls out a massive laser rifle and shoots a bunch of people with that, which is interesting. And then the finale of this mission, once you get in and destroy all the chemical equipment and stuff like that, you manage to go down to this warehouse of the factory, and this shows something really epic, which is a huge hover tank. This is a tank that can actually hover. Not sure whether it can fly, but it can hover, and you get in it. All the I think there's about 4 of you in total. You hop inside it, and it takes off the ground, and it's hovering around. You go through the factory, and this is just an epic Call of Duty moment. You're just riding through where all of the armored forces are coming towards you. You've got helicopters, tanks, the mech guys, the soldiers. Everyone is shooting at you. You'd be completely outnumbered, but you're in this kind of prototype tank, which the enemy, you've stolen from them, and you ride through, blow up absolutely everything, kill so many people. It's an epic Call of Duty moment, and you basically just destroy everything. Also helicopters, an interesting concept was that you shot, instead of shooting down the helicopters with actual projectiles like bullets or cannons or stuff like that, you actually shot an EMP blast which went up into the sky and detonated next to the helicopters, and that took them down. So that might be the new Stinger missile in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare multiplayer. Maybe you shoot these EMP blasts, or maybe they're grenades that you can throw up into the sky, and they have a huge EMP detonation blast, not the sale or the actual kill streak from previous games like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, but kind of a small radius of EMP. If the helicopter's near that, it will obviously be EMP'd, and it will go straight to the ground and be destroyed. But so that was an interesting concept, and so yeah, that was essentially the mission. Very cool. After you get out the tank, you put some explosives on it, you get picked up by this VTOL vehicle, you fly off, detonate the tank. That's the scene you might have seen in the trailers. You blow up the tank so they can't have it anymore, and then you escape, and that's essentially the mission. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like rating. Let me know your thoughts about Advanced Warfare so far. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions, impressions? What do you want to see? Obviously I've made lots of videos for Advanced Warfare, also Destiny. Check them out. I'll put a link in the description to some videos I've made. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. If you found it information, remember to give it a like rating. I would really appreciate that. Also subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be uploading more Destiny Advanced Warfare videos. Stay tuned. If you want to pre-order some cheap games such as Advanced Warfare and other cool PC games for very cheap, I'll leave a link to G2A in the description. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.